Sarah, which says Orleans Channel 18, is the IT person who's coordinating all of the Zoom meetings for the committees and things like that. So just so you know who she is and why she's with us. She's making sure we all comply with open meeting law.
All right, we are actually live over YouTube now, so you can start the meeting.
Thanks, Sarah.
You're welcome.
Well, welcome everybody, and let's officially start the meeting at 1 o'clock, looks like to me. And we'll start off, we got a lot of things to cover today, I think. The Secretary's report. This is a vote that's required to approve the minutes from the June 24. The only thing I noticed is that Keith Campbell made some great ideas, but how he got his name in there as appearing twice is beyond me. So Keith's name is there as attending twice. That's the only minor thing I saw. Anyone else have any comments?
I've got it.
Thank you for that catch, Bob.
I had a question.
So,
Hello?
So that's Sandy, Bob.
Sandy?
Hi, I had a question.
Okay.
Under Director's Report,
Yes.
the sentence says, friends have allowed us to use their credit card to purchase groceries at Friends Market in order to keep seniors out of the grocery store. Then it says, payments are mailed directly to the FOCOA. That's not clear. Am I not understanding it, or should it be clarified? Payments from whom to whom?
So to clarify what the process is, the Friends pay for the entire grocery order.
Right.
Everybody gets a bill and then they pay the Friends back for their groceries. The Friends have paid for people on SNAP benefits, but everybody else is paying them back. So would you like that clarified through the language in the minutes?
Given that I didn't understand it, perhaps it should be.
Okay, so how about if it reads something like, those who receive groceries mail their payments to reimburse the Friends. Is that better?
Yes,
Or, sure,
I have a
was gonna say-
question. Also.
each customer pays his or her own bill directly to the FOCOA. Either, sure, yours is fine.
Okay,
I have a question on that same page.
yeah.
The one where, who has the COA and serving during the COV health crisis? 68% of those served were women, 32% of those served were women, and 32% of those served were over the age of 80.
That's under Judy's report, not the minutes.
So, yeah, I
Yeah.
think we'll get to that. But right now we're just going to focus on the minutes of the last meeting.
Okay,
All right, if there are no more comments, then.
I move we accept the minutes.
As amended.
Who did a
Take a
second on
vote.
that?
second,
I did.
Nina? Thank you.
And we're all going to raise our hand to vote in favor. Is that what you want, Donna?
Yeah, sure, go ahead, Bob.
Yeah.
Deborah, I can't even see your hand, but there you go. Anita, okay, I got it. Thank you.
Opposed? I don't see anybody. Good. All right, moving on. Public comment. We don't have any public comment here, I don't believe. So I'll move on to the chair's report. I have a couple of things to discuss, particularly the budget situation in the town, but I'm going to do that in the financial report of Judy and what it possibly could mean to us. So let's go to Judy with the financial report.
Okay. All right. So in the packet, everybody got the June report. This is not technically the official year-end FY20 report. And the only reason it's not is that we haven't gotten the year-end closeout figures from Town Hall, which we then kind of verify our numbers. So this is our unofficial year-end report, but you'll get the official year-end report at our next meeting. So you can see for salaries, we turned back $834. For town expenses, we turned back more money than that. The primary reason for that was the closure of the day center program for the last several months. So that's the only real program expense that's covered in our operating expenditure budget. All of our other operating expenditures really have to do with building. And so the only thing inside of our operating expenditure budget that is not really building related or a function of our department is the routine expenses, is the day center. So those costs were saved. And so those funds, a total of $75.85 according to our records and 30 cents were turned back to the town at the end of the fiscal year 20 and not expended. So those are our town appropriation funds. And then we have, as you know, the revolving funds, the biggest of which, or the most frequently used, is the program revolving fund. So we still had expenditures because we have been paying the fitness instructors to film. We have been still incurring costs for paper products, for meals and things like that. So that while there hasn't been any money coming in, there has been money going out. So you can see at the end of the fiscal year, we have a balance of 38,101, and that'll become our starting balance for FY21. And again, those figures will be verified before they become official. The state formula grant, we received permission to redo our budget because of the cancellation of programs. So we spent all of that money under an approved fashion that went through Elder Affairs. So we're ending the year with zero. That is the goal, because anything we don't spend from those funds would be taken out of next year's allocation. So we spent those funds. Gift and donations. Did someone have a question? Gift and donations. We used some of those funds this year. We're turning over, starting the fiscal year with about $3,000 less than we started the year with. To be truthful, this wasn't a huge donation year for us. With this, that's really the account where small donations go. Larger gifts are usually put in a separate account because they usually come with kind of expenditure guidelines. So there's not a lot of money that you'll see in there. To be honest, at the end of the fiscal year, we did use formula grant monies to cover some salaries. Because we were allowed to do that, we thought that was a way to turn back money to the town, given the projection of the budget issues. So we did use some of our formula grant money, so it looks like a very high expenditure. But what we did at the end of the year is transfer some expenditures to the formula grant in a way that was approved by the state, so that we actually could turn funds back to the town and not use town funds for things. So we thought that was kind of a team player approach, since we do have access to funds that some other departments don't have access to. Other than that, there really were no other expenditures. I don't know if anyone has any questions for me. I think to point out, the one thing that honestly, I'm pretty proud of is that despite the day center being closed for since March, we still turned in $141,345 in revenue to the town's general fund. Obviously, that's not going to happen moving forward. And so that needs to be part of our budget discussion. The program was in such good shape this year. We had really worked hard to get it successful. It was very well attended. We were doing really good with collecting fees and all of that got turned over to the town. So part of our dilemma as a department and the town's dilemma is that that revenue is now gone because the program is closed.
That amount of money was from the daycare center alone?
That's all day center money. Yep.
Okay,
Wow.
Yeah. All right.
wow.
So I did put something in your board in your packets, and maybe Bob, this is budget financial related, so maybe you want to talk about it, but I did put an article that had been in the Cape Cod Times in your packet, just so that to give you, if you have not been following local news, some awareness that the town is projecting a financial deficit. One of the things that has happened is they have identified the 10 town departments with the largest budgets. We are, I believe, number 7 in that. I personally think that part of that discussion needs to be, are we comparing apples to apples? Because most of those departments have buildings that they maintain. And so that's reflected in our operating expenditure budget. So we have a little bit of a change in our liaison to the selectmen, and maybe we can talk to Cecil about this, but my understanding right now is that the Board of Selectmen have started a discussion about how to move forward with this, and my understanding is that different departments on that list of 10 may get called in to have budget discussions. I have been led to believe that there most probably will be reductions in our budget. I have proactively already kind of started that review process. I have had conversations with John Kelly. I believe issues around staffing are being reviewed by the town administration. I don't really have anything specific to report because I don't really have any specific information that I've been given.
Yeah, that's exactly what my questions were. Had John Kelly approached you on this already? You know, it seems to me that we're a little bit vulnerable because no one wants to stop the police or the fire department or anything else like that. Education, which are all bigger budgets than us. So there we sit at number 8, I thought, or we were anyway. But it's really not apples to apples because of the grant money that we received to offset those. I didn't see a lot of area that cuts could be possible. Have you actually begun to look at that? Has he given you any guidelines as percent?
No, he did tell us at the last department managers meeting what had transpired. I haven't had any specific communication about that, other than I know the Board of Selectmen were starting the review process and discussions about kind of financial feasibility for the town moving forward. So no, I haven't. But, you know, I mean, truthfully, I saw the handwriting on the wall. I mean, there's lots of talk about this statewide about revenue projections and how far down they are. Our operating expenditure, truthfully, is pretty tight. Will there be a savings this year in it? Yeah, there will. And I don't know if that will be enough I don't know if targets will be established or anything like that. But with the day center program closed, at least through December, those program funds in the operating expenditure budget won't be needed. We have not addressed all of the staffing related issues yet. But the programmatic funds will be half of what we had requested because the program will be closed minimally for half of the fiscal year. So that's the first place in my mind. I have started some contingency planning because sometimes when things like this happen, we don't get a lot of time to make decisions. I want to be prepared when I'm called for the discussion. So other than the day center, the only other place to look at for reductions will be staffing.
Yeah, that's unfortunately, that's what I thought as well when I looked at the.
It's so, and those are decisions that are made at the town administration level. And I presume that we'll be heading towards discussions of that at some point in time.
When these things have happened in the past, I wish Meph was here, but it seems to me, let me ask you, do they go after functions, departments, let's say, individually to look for reductions, or they do a blanket, cut everything by 2%, cut your budget by 2%, something like that?
Well, I mean, I can remember one year where, well, I mean, during this, they asked us all to turn back 10% of our operating expenditures, which we did in FY20. And so that was kind of across the board. I think this is different. I think they're targeting things. Cecil may have more information for us. I don't have any specific communication yet about this, other
Okay.
than I just thought it was important for you to know.
Yeah.
I have to be honest with you. We are not doing programs and activities right now. So is there a potential for some savings in staffing? Maybe there is. But that's a discussion that I think happens, at the next level up. And my understanding is that it's being reviewed, but I don't have any more information than that.
Okay, that's basically what I wanted to know, how far along.
If you watch the selectmen's meeting today at 4 o'clock, I think you get a lot of questions answered because their agenda is all of these subjects.
Oh, interesting. Okay,
Can I ask a quick question?
sure.
Judy, I don't know if you'll know the answer to this. The $141,000 from the day program that goes to the general fund, do you know, is that amount put under the heading of local receipts?
I have no idea where that gets reflected in the budget. quite
fine.
honestly.
That's fine. I'm actually asking that question because it's something that Cecil needs to be aware of,
Well,
that whether or not
the
that
other
money is part of our local receipts.
right. The other thing
Thank you.
and my comment about apples to apples is when you look at what our town, they are looking apples to apples in that those amounts that were put, I think it was in the last selectmen's packet in terms of what the budget amounts were. Those were the town appropriation of amounts. So that is apples to apples. However, it doesn't reflect the fact that I don't know which departments have revenue. We have revenue, maybe all the other departments too. So I think that revenue has to be part of what you look at when you're evaluating.
Absolutely.
Because it does kind of offset some of the costs, really.
Right.
If we're not doing the program, the day center program, obviously we're not going to have the revenue. So I do think that has to be part of the conversation.
Yeah, that's the point I was getting to. If you look at the revenues versus the expenses, if you start to cut programs, the revenues start to go down. And that's a double hit. So I hope, well, we'll see what happens. But I'll see if I get over that meeting today at 4. That will be interesting. Okay. Any other questions on the financial aspects? All right, we can move on to the director's report.
All right, Keith, I didn't forget you had a question there. So my report was part of the packet, and I like to include kind of the metrics or the statistics, if you will, of kind of what's been happening to give you some idea. So we've had a lot of contact with different people through what we are able to do. I mean, we have our transportation obviously is so much lower than it used to be. Some of that is because people aren't going to all the places they used to go. Some of that is because we can only put one person on the bus at a time. But you can see that obviously our metrics are significantly as opposed to a typical June. I always like to kind of point out some of the demographic, and Keith is right. It should have said 32% of those served were men and 68% were women. So that's a mistake. And then I always am interested, 32% of those served were over the age of 80. So that's, we are serving some of our communities, older residents. Regarding reopening, at present, we are open. Our office is, our building is not open to the public, but we are here and the building is Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 4:30, as it has been throughout the crisis. We are tentatively planning for a limited opening in September. We've had preliminary conversations with the health department about this. That opening also is part of what the regional council on aging, so 15 councils on aging on the Cape, have gotten together to try and discuss what is appropriate. We have been in consultation with the state Elder Affairs and with the Mass Council on Aging to try and come up with some parameters that we think are safe, but that will help us to return to do some of our activities. So we're tentatively planning something in September where we might be able to have one-on-one appointments return. Things like legal services, foot care services, and things of that nature. They would obviously have to be done following all of the prescribed safety protocols, social distancing and disinfecting and all of that. They will have to adhere to all of the state guidelines. The other thing that we are looking at is potentially doing small group activities. It looks as though groups of 8 may be allowed. Right now, I have some papers on my desk. Part of the formula for the Council on Aging is going to be based on the square footage of the building, and not just the building, but all of the spaces. So we have a square footage for a whole building, but now we had to break it down so that we have square footage for each space, so that we can figure out what would be permitted anyways. So we're working on that. All of the full-time staff are working, part-time staff are able and as needed. But as I said earlier, the impact of this is all being on staff is being reviewed by the town. Just a reminder that Sue Bile, our outreach worker, retires tomorrow after 20 years of service for the town. Actually, she at the end of the week, but we're having her party tomorrow. So we're doing a porch, drive-by on the porch, and we're serving refreshments that are all individually wrapped and can be taken home. But she's excited about this. And so if you have a chance to drive by tomorrow afternoon between 1 and 3, we'd encourage you to do that. Some programming updates. One of the things that we've gotten done over the last couple of weeks, with ITE Sarah, who you met earlier as help, is we have now created live links on our website, and we've created YouTube links for all of our fitness classes so that people can participate in a fitness class on demand. So we're still having issues with our fitness classes being bumped because the channel 18 is also being used obviously for public meetings. So it's a way of giving people another option to participate in fitness classes. So if you have internet service, you can go to our webpage and there are some live links right there that people can click on, and they go to YouTube and they can have their fitness class at home whenever it's convenient for them.
That's a great option, Judy, I have to say. And have you had many calls from residents who don't have internet access?
I mean, yes. And that's something we have to really safeguard against, is that we still have a lot of people who don't use technology or can't afford the internet service. So we're trying to provide it both ways. We still have some pending discussions with Lower Cape TV. We are still trying to find out if we can get a block of senior hours on cable that can be accessed without interruption. So we're kind of trying to work on this on different, in different ways. We did send a robocall out to all of our fitness class participants, so they were all made aware of it. So,
Judy.
Yes, Bob.
When you're talking about reopening, are you discussing whether or not to mandate face masks?
They are mandated.
I'm sorry?
They are mandated.
They are. They will be for September?
Oh, yes. Yeah, we won't be able to do this if people don't adhere to the state guidelines. Yes, they're mandated.
Thank you.
I don't have one on, and Donna doesn't because we're in our offices with our door closed. But if we, I actually have 2 of them on my desk, but as soon as we leave our office, our policy is that we have to put them on.
Yeah,
So if
okay.
you're going to the bathroom in the hall, you still have to wear your face mask. So those of us that have been working through this whole thing have really gotten really comfortable with it. But obviously it's, once we make changes, we always have to review the process along the way because we want to adhere to really strict.
Thanks, Judy.
And those classes are still on channel 18 too, Anita.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah,
They could take them that way.
yeah, that's great. Thank you.
So transportation, we are continuing. We're trying to increase capacity a little bit. One of the things that we're aware of is that doctor's appointments have started back up again. The hospital in 2 weeks' time went from being empty to being full because they started surgeries again. Joint replacement surgeries are in full swing on the Cape. And people need to get to doctor's appointments. So without our volunteer fish program, we need to use the bus to get people to the doctor's appointments. And so right now, with the level of transportation we're providing being
I'll get
down,
it. I'll get it.
are able to
Okay.
do that
I don't
want it working on my
I'll get it.
within our existing, without having anybody work extra.
Judy, are you charging for that ride? They're charging for that?
We returned to our policy of asking for donations because the town funds, I think I don't have the budget in front of me, about $1,500 a year for van maintenance. All of our maintenance of our vehicles is done retail. Occasionally the town will help us put on a new tire or something like that, but we pay privately for all of our vehicle maintenance. So those little $3 donations, although they sound small, they really do help offset the cost of oil changes and things. People have not complained about the return to the donations. We have set up a policy so that the drivers aren't touching the cash, so that there's no cash kind of exchanging hands. When you're asking for $3 at a time, you have to understand it's going to be cash. It's not going to be a check. We've encouraged people to write a check once a month. So we're trying to make sure that there isn't a lot of cash handling going on, and those little amounts of money do help. So
Judy, can I ask a question about the vehicles?
Yeah.
You said that you have to have private people do the work other than maybe change a tire. Is the vehicle bought by the town or is it bought on a separate account?
So one of our vehicles, Cecil, is a lease through the Regional Transit Authority, but we are required to pay the maintenance because the lease is free. So they lease it to the town for free. In exchange, we have to pay for all the maintenance of the vehicle. The other vehicle, the Council on Aging purchased with some of our funds that we had through one of our trusts, but it's owned by the town.
It is owned by the town.
Yes.
So in essence, the town should be able to maintain it for you, right?
I don't know. I mean, I know there's only one mechanic. I don't know that they have the capacity, but that is the way it works. We do pay privately for our vehicle maintenance.
Okay. Thank you.
I have a question, Judy.
Yeah, Bob?
Do you have, or is there any way to find out how many senior citizens do not have internet coverage?
So in the form that we put in our last newsletter, that was actually a question that we asked. Do you have internet? Because it is something we are trying to track. And I'll talk a little bit more about that, but that is information that we need to get from people. But we rely on people letting us know. We know that some of the people that we help don't have it. I mean, we know that for a fact. I mean, one of the dream advocacy projects I think could come out of this crisis is that I want to say it was like 8 years ago or something. There was a lot of talk about open communities that would have wireless access throughout the community. And I don't really know what ever happened to that, but we have 2 subsidized housing developments for seniors. And I mean, I'm not sure there isn't a way for us to kind of encourage or provide internet that people, if they had a network, if people couldn't, if they had a wireless network, if people couldn't join for cheaper than everybody calling Comcast and paying $40 a month. And I do think that's kind of a community issue. Like I said, that would be a dream advocacy project that I'd like to, perhaps work on over the course of the next year, because this crisis really has highlighted how hard that is for some people. And a lot of people don't have the technology. I'd say it's 50-50. 50% of the people don't have it because they can't afford it. And 50% of the people don't have it either because they don't want to, use it, or they don't have the skills to use it. So for the last year and a half, we've been working really hard at closing the skill gap by offering classes on a regular basis on technology. So we've been trying to attack that. And then I think we need to attack the other pieces. We need to attack the accessibility for especially some of our low-income residents. This month we transitioned to having our cooks back. They're making lunches. It's very successful. Everybody's really thrilled with the quality of the menus.
Fabulous.
And we are very blessed to have had such a generous benefactor really offer us a grant to help pay for this. So we're really excited, and the transition from Nauset Schools was seamless for all of us. So
how many people, Judy, how many people are receiving the?
How many people are receiving meals? We
Roughly.
are delivering 52 meals on Mondays, 54 on Fridays, and 10 on Wednesdays. Some of those people receive 2 meals. But it seems like every week we're getting more requests.
Yeah.
The tax aid program happened since we met last. We had our policies approved by national ARP, state ARP, Board of Health, and the town administrator. And it went very well. A lot of thanks goes to our 2 volunteers, Susan and Louise, who work for ARP, who came in. We got everybody who had their tax appointment canceled due to the COVID crisis was able to have their taxes completed and filed electronically. So nobody missed the deadline. So that it was excellent. It really worked seamlessly. Virtual programming, to be truthful, we've started it. It's a little bit hit or miss. The Learn to Zoom classes that we're offering people are really excited about and participating in and signing up for. Some of the other classes haven't had the response that we had hoped for. So I think one of the things we really need to do, and we'll talk about it later when we talk about the survey, but I think we need to try and figure out what people want. So it's not that we're going to stop trying, but it would help people share just their thoughts about what they might participate in and what they won't participate in. But until then, it's a little bit hit or miss. And then just the administrative updates. The biggest one to let you know about is that Housing Assistance Corporation does this program called the Big Fix every year. And every year it's in a different community. This year it's Orleans' turn. What they do is they kind of descend on the community with hundreds of volunteers. They do minor home repairs and yard work for seniors, for veterans, and for disabled people. The scope of the program has been narrowed a little bit because of the crisis and the need to adhere to safety guidelines. But we are still hoping that, there will be some people who will be able to benefit from this. The social service coordinator, Lynn Bryan, and I have met with housing assistants now a couple of times. We're actively working with a couple of senior families to take advantage of that. I know that they've been to the Board of Selectmen meeting, I believe, to talk about it. So I do think the scope will be narrowed a little bit, but I'm still hopeful that there are a couple people in need that will really benefit from this program. It's exciting. It happens on October 3rd. And if anybody has questions, they can call the Council on Aging and we can hook them up with the application process. I don't know if anybody has any questions.
You mean I don't have to mow the lawn, Judy?
No. Well, it's
Okay.
really funny. I mean, there have been times when our bus drivers go to people's houses and they have brought, clippers with them because the bushes are so overgrown getting in some of the driveways. So we've even asked them for referrals, like what are the homes we should try and get to? So hopefully we'll have, some work.
Okay. All right.
Judy,
Yep.
the $141,000 that you return back to the town and goes into general fund, where did that money originate from?
It originated from revenue from the supportive daycare program that we run here at the senior center. That's the program where we provide respite for caregivers. They send their loved ones who have dementia here, and we provide a day program for them. And that program was suspended due to the COVID crisis in March and will not return now, at least until January.
So I'm a little confused. Why do you have to turn that into the town?
Because it's a fee, we've always turned fees over to the town. The town pays for the day center staff, Cecil, as part of our budget. So my guess is that's why it gets turned over to the town.
Well, I'm going to look into that because I don't think you should have to. I mean, that's just me. But I will check on that one for you.
Good. Okay. Selectmen. So I guess Miff is not present, I don't believe.
So Bob, let me just tell you, because you didn't even have a chance to see the email. I got an email right before this meeting started from MEF saying that the Board of Selectmen had changed. They probably had an annual organizational meeting. And the reason Cecil is here is because he's our new liaison. So I just got that news. So Cecil's not just poking us, he's here on official capacity.
Okay.
I guess they appointed me because I'm the oldest guy on the board.
I didn't say that, Cecil.
But it's true. So I'm totally new to this. It's my first meeting and I'm here more just to listen today. I mean, if you do have specific questions, I'll try to answer them, but don't expect much today.
Well, welcome. Thank you very much. Okay. Friends of the report from the Friends.
So we don't have anyone here from the Friends, Bob. I will follow up. I will follow up with the Friends. Some of the people on the Friends board aren't technology users, but I think probably it's time that someone participate. And I do know that they have a couple people on their board who probably would be willing. The person who was the liaison to our group in the past doesn't use the internet. But they could join us by telephone. So I'm going to follow up on that to see if we can get them participating forward.
Yeah, they're an important group. I didn't realize that about the internet connection. Okay. New business. I don't have any new business. Old business.
Everything feels like new business to me right now.
That's right. Everything's new.
We
have a vote. We have a vote required here on the approval of the transportation policy, which was attached to the document you had.
So the only thing changing on the policy is the insertion of the emergency issue. So that transportation policy during periods of emergency, it's understood that I have to take that over and that some of the rest of the policy may not apply. So this is kind of a housekeeping item, I believe.
Okay.
I have a really picky comment about that. It's silly, really, but after transportation is considered an essential service and during periods, oh, never mind. I retract that. I was going to say a semicolon, but now I see why it's there.
Okay.
As a comma.
Okay, so I would ask for a vote to approve the transportation policy as shown here.
Wait a second, you have somebody make the motion.
Yeah, that's right. A motion first. Excuse me.
I move to call the question and call it to a vote.
Andy, is that you?
Yep.
You have a second?
Second.
Deborah, it's yours.
Okay.
Everybody's trying to
All
think. Got a vote?
All those in favor, raise your right hand or left.
Okay, thank you.
Good. Excellent. We'll get good at this one of these days. All right, the next item here was the survey. Just to refresh everybody's mind on this, I actually went and looked mine up and I had a copy from September of last year. It was part of our charge for the COA board to survey our members, our clients, if you ask me. And several of us worked on the survey, Anita and obviously Judy, and came up with a pretty good survey. But back then, the idea was to had questions about activities that you participate in, how often do you go, what would you make suggestions on these? That's going to be very difficult, I think, to do now when we aren't really open, and would cause more confusion. I'm not sure about the quality of the results, because opening is probably on everyone's mind versus what the programs they enjoy doing. So I don't know, Judy, you had an idea of changing?
Yeah, I think what we need to do is we really need to.
One more thing, we're going to insert it in the newsletter. That's how it was going to happen. The results would come back and would analyze them. Go right ahead.
So I'd like to modify something and get it. I'm going to put a little questionnaire in the next newsletter, because we've been pleasantly surprised how many people have actually taken the time to return that form that we put in the last newsletter to us. So I think we're going to put something in there asking. So first of all, it's hurricane season, so we kind of tend to do what is your plan type of conversation in the newsletter in the fall. But I think this whole crisis has taught us, Lynn and I have had many conversations about this, and Lynn is the social service coordinator, that how many people really are unprepared. I mean, one of the things that we have found is that we are some people's emergency plan, and we can't be somebody's whole plan. Somebody has to have had some thought into who it will be. Now, truthfully, there are some people who live here in our community who are older, who don't have family in the area, who don't have family, who live alone, and they don't, I mean, we are it. But we've learned a lot also over the last year about how many people are living, through some of these emergencies that the fire department doesn't know about, or we don't know who's got oxygen in the home and things like that. So during a weather emergency, we advocate with power company to prioritize certain places based on information we have, and our information is not really solid. So I have met with the police chief and the fire chief about this, and we are going to start moving towards trying to get more updated information and have an emergency list that gets shared. So one of the things that we're going to be doing in the next newsletter is putting in some information about what you should be thinking of and what you should be doing in terms of making an emergency plan for yourself. And then the other thing is trying to encourage people to register. We'll get the information. We have a computer database where we have a place set aside for this, and then we will share it as needed with the police and fire, so that, like I said, if there's a weather emergency, we know this last year, for instance, we learned of somebody who was significantly physically disabled and very reliant on technology here in our community that we were completely unaware of. And those are things that emergency personnel should know, so that if there is some kind of a crisis in the community, we really know who we should be checking on first. So we're going to use the newsletter instead of the survey, which we had planned for September, October. We're going to use some of the space for this issue.
I just want to say that I thought this survey was great. You called it an update form, but it certainly should give you a lot of information that's important. I thought it was well done.
Yeah. What I will tell you, there's a little ulterior motive for that, is that, we do these robocalls using our new computerized system. I hate them. I absolutely hate the robocalls. And I think all of you hate them too, because a lot of people now have blocked our number because they get because there's something on their phone that recognizes it as a robocall. So now when we go to call people, sometimes we can't, they think we're a robocall because we're using the same number the robocall goes from. And the other thing that people do, and we're going to talk about this in the newsletter, is people call us back before they even listen to the robocall. So when we send out a robocall, we all have to be ready and available to answer the phones for the next 45 minutes. We will get so many calls of people saying, you tried to call me? And, you know, there's really not a polite way to say, yes, we did, please listen to the message. So we have to kind of review it. So we would like to move towards email. It's one of the things that we've talked about so that maybe we can, you know, do this in such a way that it's a little bit more helpful to people. I think a lot of people are receiving information that way now. So this was the year we were starting to work on our, you know, technology plan and social media use. So it's really kind of made that evident that it's time to do that.
Whole new world we're living in.
Whole new world.
Yeah.
You're right,
Yeah.
Pete.
It's a great idea.
Like it or not, right?
All right, so do you want to work together and coming up with some new, you've got a better feel for it than I do, but I'd be glad to help.
I think that I need to, truthfully, while I appreciate the offer, what's really important to me is what's important to the police and fire department, because it has to be a mutually beneficial,
Okay.
you know, information gathering for it to be really useful to all of us. So I think that's probably where, you know, where I'm going to go for that. I have something drafted and started. We have put together a formal referral form for the Council on Aging so that we can start getting the information we need when other town departments make referrals to us. So this is kind of another step in that process of kind of working on that.
And the plan is to have some type of insert attachment for the
Yes.
September newsletter?
Yes.
Tiding?
Yes.
Very good. Okay, thank you. I somehow we did it again. Yeah, I
What
think
kind of
that's,
response did you get on that survey? You have any, just a rough count?
I don't know the numbers yet because Kelly hasn't gotten them all entered yet. But I have to say, I thought we might get 10, and we, you know, definitely got at least 10 times that. So I don't honestly know the official number. I'll report back to you once they're all entered and counted.
and what did you use for a list?
Well, that went into the newsletter.
Oh, okay, so it was the newsletter distribution. Okay.
Yeah.
She's got, what's the head count on that? 1,500?
Oh, on the newsletter? No, it's closer to about 1,800, Donna.
Yeah.
1,800. Oh, wow. Excellent. Good.
So return your form.
Yeah.
When you live
All
alone, I think that the form was very well done for people the seniors that live alone.
Yeah.
The
Well,
information that you fill out on it.
Yeah. One of the things we're going to talk about in the newsletter is that we actually use that information, and we used it a lot over the last 4 months. So we had, and I mentioned at our last meeting, we had one situation, we had a caregiver hospitalized, and we had someone with dementia at home alone for 3 days. And so we were having to reach out to family. We had another situation. It was somebody from our day center program. And it was a similar, the caregiver had a medical emergency, and we didn't have updated, we had updated emergency contacts, but the emergency contact lived very far away. And so we had to kind of work with community agencies to get a plan together to have somebody stay with the person so the caregiver could get to the hospital until the family members got here really from thousands of miles away. And then there was another situation pretty similar where it was another situation where a caregiver had a medical crisis, and we didn't have, and it wasn't somebody that we dealt with a lot, but we didn't have any contact information. So it just kind of highlights the reason why you have to have some kind of a plan. We don't have to be your plan, but especially for those people taking care of somebody, you really have to have thought about an emergency plan. We're going to really work on that through education in the next few months.
Can I change the subject for a minute?
Sure.
I used to, at one time, I was president of the Friends of the Library and also the treasurer for their investment fund. And we paid into the library a certain amount of money each year as required by the IRS to the library. And I'm unclear about the relationship between the Friends of the Council on Aging and whether there's a fund or whether the COA gets money from the Friends, or how does that work? Here, I'm just looking for information.
So, so typically how it has worked is they do have requirements, and they, as a private nonprofit, they have to be audited and meet certain requirements in order to retain their nonprofit status. So they have to give a certain percentage every year.
5%.
Yeah, so which they far exceed. But
5% on the interest and dividends.
so they don't have our friends group, at least as of this point, don't have an endowment. There are different rules, Bob, for endowments than there are for private nonprofits with regular different streams of revenue.
Okay.
So, but they are aware of those guidelines and they do follow them. How it has worked so far is that every year the Friends put aside money into a benevolent fund called the Friends Cares Fund. And we have a process where application is made through our outreach department. I have to sign off on that. We fund certain things, but that is it's done anonymously. So the Friends don't know. There are some parameters that they've put in place for so that one person, for instance, doesn't get thousands of dollars of benefits. So there are some perimeters for that. They also sponsor programming here at the Senior Center. And in addition, when we're having programs, if we need help with funding, we make requests for that. So we have a formal request process where I fill out a form and we request funding for certain things. So regrettably, some of the programs that they were to have fund this summer obviously were canceled. They were big supporters of our Lunch and Listen concert programs that we had out in the garden. They have done paint programs and art programs and
Friendly Fish. Fridays. Friendly Fish.
That's right. They sponsor on Fridays once a month because the cost of fish is so high, but people love it. They subsidize the cost of they called it Friends Fish Fridays. So they actually do spend quite a bit of money.
Thank you. Thank you, Judy.
Okay, unless there's anything else, then this meeting is officially adjourned. Thank you all for coming. See you next time, August.
I need a motion. I need a motion to adjourn.
Oh, okay.
So make a motion.
Andy Chernick, second that.
Motion.
Bob Singer.
Oh, there it is.
Anybody object?
Everybody voted? Okay,
Bye.
Okay,
great, thank you.
Everybody.
thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
You.